That choice has brought the greatest joys of my existence in starting our family. Although I had the choice to marry Kim, I did not choose my in-laws. Jim and Karen Nelson are my in-laws. However, I have been the recipient of their kindness and support, far above anything that I deserve. And I have witnessed their Christ-centered devotion in their service to their family and community members. On a more professional note, Jim Nelson was actually invited to speak at a forum first, way back in 2016, and I had nothing to do with that. But something happened, they had to cancel, it never got rescheduled until today, and I may have had something to do with that. But he's had many speaking and public events, including ringing the bell at NASDAQ, has been interviewed on multiple broadcast networks, and has been a guest speaker at Utah State Business School. So I'm eager to hear his remarks today. James B. Nelson is the retired co-founder and CEO of Sunworks, Inc., an operator and consolidator of solar integrators in the Western United States, as well as a developer of new solar technology. Jim currently sits on the board of directors of a number of private and publicly traded operating companies, as well as a university institute. Jim began his executive career 30 years ago at Bain & Company, a business strategy consulting firm, where he managed teams of consultants on 4 continents, solving CEO-level issues for global companies. While servicing at Bain, he advised chief executives in the consumer products, information systems, banking, and manufacturing industries. From Bain, he was hired away by a client. He served as vice president of marketing and corporate development at Saga Corporation. He was part of the transition team when Marriott acquired Saga in 1986 and was offered an equivalent position at Marriott. He instead went to work at The Gap, where he served as vice president of marketing at Banana Republic and The Gap, where he managed company-wide local area marketing in retail store trading areas, as well as the initial international expansion of Banana Republic. He was also a general manager for the highly profitable catalog division. Most of his career was spent in private equity, investing as general partner of 2 separate successful funds, serving as general partner of each fund and as CEO of some of the portfolio companies. Mr. Nelson received his MBA from Brigham Young University, where he was named Outstanding Master of Business Administration graduate. He has served as a district commissioner in the Boy Scouts of America and has served in many positions in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Jim and his wife Karen are the parents of 10 children and have 24 grandchildren. Following Mr. Nelson's remarks, we will sing Love One Another, conducted by Kate Howe, and the benediction will be offered by Avery Johnson, a sophomore from Leavenworth, Kansas, majoring in family and human development and the teacher licensure program. Please join me in giving a warm SVU welcome to Jim Nelson.
Thank you. Beautiful music. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Is Luke Lacey here? Hey, Luke. How are you? I told your dad I'd say hi when I saw you. It's good to see you. Luke and my son Jack, who's also here, were friends in high school. And Mike is one of my great friends in the world, one of the great people that you'll ever know. Luke doesn't fall far from that tree. I love this place. It's since Sam and Kim have been here, I've got to come here a lot, and I just love it. I grew up in Virginia. I grew up in McLean, and so every weekend or every time we'd have a super activity or a weekend activity in the Boy Scouts or Explorers, we'd come to the Blue Ridge and camp or hike or fish or whatever. And a few years ago, Sam mentioned I spoke at Utah State, and after my talk, Karen and I went out to, by the way, my wife Karen's here too. She's my wife, Karen has, she's raised 10 kids, and this is the most important month of my life. It's the month that she was born and the month that we got married. So happy November to all of you. I know what happens on my Thanksgiving Day, which actually happens to be this Thanksgiving, happens to be her birthday and our anniversary and Thanksgiving. And my heart is full of thanks for that day. Anyway, I spoke at Utah State, and afterwards they took us out to lunch, and we went up to the top floor of the business building, which happens to be the tallest building in Logan, and it looks over Cache Valley, which is beautiful. He says, I want to show you the most beautiful place in the world. And then he says, by the way, where are you from? And I said, Santa Barbara. He said, oh, well, this is the second most beautiful place in the world. But of course, we know better. I'm willing to say to anybody in Santa Barbara or Cache Valley or anywhere else that the most beautiful place in the world is the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. I hope you cherish this time in this beautiful place, at this great university with these great people. You'll be making connections for the time that you're here that'll last for your whole life. And I hope you cherish this time. I also hope every day in your prayers you thank the Lord that you're able to live in the United States of America, which is the greatest country that has ever been. And it's from here that the gospel is sent out to the world. This is the greatest fighter pilot in the world, call sign Doc. If he's not the greatest, you'd have to make a really good argument for the 6 or 7 other fighter pilots that are even in his league. He was interested in aviation from very small, and then when he went to BYU, he entered the engineering program, intending to be in the aeronautical engineering. Then he went on a mission to Columbus, Ohio. When he returned, by what James Taylor might call the mother of all big breaks, the Air Force came to campus recruiting. They interviewed him and tested him, and as a result of his performance on those tests, he was offered a job in the Air Force as a pilot. He began his pilot training there at little teeny Provo Airport, and his performance in his training was so outstanding they offered him the choice of airplanes. He chose the F-15, which at the time was the dominant air superiority fighter in the world. While he was in the F-15s, he attended fighter weapons school of the Air Force, Top Gun school in the Navy. Even though he was in the Air Force, they invited him. Of course, that's the school that was made famous by Tom Cruise. And then he entered a class to become a test pilot. When the F-22 was invented to take the place of the F-15 as the air superiority fighter, he was one of the first 3 test pilots of the F-22. Then later, at Lockheed, after he retired from the Air Force, he became the lead test pilot for the F-35. He recently was inducted into the Test Pilot Hall of Fame. And of course, if you ask anybody in the Air Force who's involved in fighter planes, if they know him by name, they would say, oh, you mean Doc? His was a dream career. He is a world-class pilot. I asked him if he wanted to participate in this discussion today, as he said yes. He had to. He's my little brother, Lieutenant Colonel David Nelson. This is Dave in the lead F-35 here. F-35, one of the attributes that it has is that one of the versions can land vertically, and this is him landing straight down in the F-35. Of course, both the F-22 and the F-35 are stealth aircraft. So they're hard to see even when they're on the ground. His career is the envy of all pilots, even those who go on to become apostles. A few years ago, the Air Force asked him to do a recruiting ad for the Air Force, and so he took up one of his friends, and he flew the F-15, his friend flew an F-16, and somebody went up in a chase fighter, and took these pictures, and here's the ad.
Just in case you didn't catch the number the first time.
That's what world class looks like when they're fighting. But many of you may be interested in aviation, but not many of you will go into aviation, and certainly not many of you will become a world-class fighter pilot. But there are a lot of other things that you can do. There's Meryl Streep. arguably one of the greatest actors of all time. Even though I'm a Federer fan, Novak Djokovic is the greatest tennis player of all time. This is my friend Bill Bifus. He is a world-class mule wrangler. And he and I ride up in the mountains in the West often, and he's known throughout the West by anybody interested in mules for the quality of his animals and the quality of his training. This is Anne-Sophie Pic, head of Maison Pic in the south of France, and many people believe that she is the greatest chef in the world. This is Warren Buffett. He's the greatest ukulele player in the world. And he's probably the greatest something anyway. But here's the greatest ukulele player. This is Jake Shimabukuro. I've been to one of Jake's concerts. It is incredible what he can do with the ukulele. This is Russell Nelson, who you might recognize. Before he retired to pursue something else, he was one of the greatest heart surgeons in the world. This is Kim Hurt. She's being accosted here by Captain Planet. Here's the real Kim. She is a world-class youth and children's theater director. Right here in a small village in the Blue Ridge Mountains, she's created a world-class youth and children's theater. And in fact, if any of you want a really good date, she's doing there's a production tonight and tomorrow night. And it would certainly be worth your while to go see. Anyway, all of these people are world-class at what they do. And it didn't just happen to them. It happened through conscious effort. I want you to remember this statement. You were not born with talent. You grow it. Talent is cellular insulation wrapped in around neural circuits that respond to certain signals. So give this some thought as we go through our presentation. Today we're going to talk about how to become world-class through the development of your talent. Before there was Steph Curry, there was Ray Allen. By the way, I hope there are some Celtics fans in the audience. A lot of these sports examples that I'm going to use are easy to use, but I hope you see that they apply to virtually anything you can do, whether it's business, law, education, parenting, or being a disciple of Jesus Christ. Ray is famous for his routine in terms of preparing for games. He used to go out on the court hours before anybody else, and he'd shoot from all positions on the court. And in fact, as many positions of his body that he could, so when he would get into the game, nothing would be unfamiliar to him. He said, people say what a God-given gift it is that I have, but God doesn't care if I can shoot a jump shot. My routine is what I do. It's a bit OCD, but it's what got me here. I want to make 2 points here. One is, I think for most of us, God doesn't care what we do as long as it is honest and honorable and will lead us to Him. But secondly, Ray has a key to talent development here that we want to talk about. Talent development has 3 distinct segments that you have to go through. One is ignition, 2 is deep practice, and the other one is master coaching. Let's talk about ignition to start. Ignition itself helps you identify your focus, start believing in yourself that you actually can do it, and also developing the desire and motivation to be able to become great at it. This is Larry Bird, also a Celtic. He said, the number one thing is desire. The ability to do the things that you have to do to become a basketball player. I don't think you can teach desire. I don't know why I have it, but I do. So desire is a key to becoming great at something. My brother got it early. This is him in 1959 in his little jet pilot helmet, sitting on my dad's lap with my mom in Farmingdale, New York. I asked him to tell us a little bit about how he got interested in flight.
I would have to attribute the beginning of my interest in aviation to Dad being an airline employee for United Airlines, and us being around airplanes a lot during our youth, and riding on those airplanes and looking out the window at the propellers turning on the wing and the flaps going down and the spoilers coming up, and Dad teaching me what those different surfaces were. And while we were waiting for an airplane to come or go, looking out at them and being fascinated by their shape and their efficiency and the elegance of them. Also, you actually have the encyclopedia that was key to my interest. The A book, the number 2 A book, has all the good stuff in it: aerodynamics, aircraft engines, airplanes, all kinds of aircraft manufacturers. And if you look at that book today, you'll see the dirt from my fingers are still on the edge of the pages there. I used to go out in the front yard and throw paper airplanes back and forth across the front yard because it fascinated me to see them fly. Same with birds, seagulls. The Wright brothers were heroes of mine. I had a friend in high school who decided he was going to get his pilot's license and took me up. And that was inspirational to me, to think that a kid could get his pilot's license. When I went to college, one of the professors in the mechanical engineering department was a guy named Jim Colby. He flew P-51s in World War II, and he was an instructor at the United States Air Force Test Pilot School when it first opened up in the early 50s. I used to stand outside of his graduate level courses as an underclassman and listen to the war stories that he would tell about flying an airplane. And about, the classes were on turbo machinery, so it was jet engines, and also stability and control. And I just used to stand with my ear against his door and listen to that stuff because it was fascinating to me. And Mom and Dad had these books from Time Life. They were science books. One was on light, one was on matter, one was on time, and they got one on flight. And I looked at that flight one until the pages fell out. We still have it now, and I keep the pages tucked into the cover, but they're no longer attached to the binding. Anyway, I told Brother Colby that came up to him one day, and I was 18 years old, and I said, someday I'm going to be a famous test pilot just like you. And he looked at me and got this big smile on his face, and he said, they'll probably ask you to cut your hair.
Well, that's my brother. You can tell that he has a passion for flying, and that's what got him there. In fact, I used to tell people they should follow their passion. I don't say that anymore, because I don't think it works for most of us. Some of us, if we follow our passions from the time we're little, we actually get into a career like that. If I had done it, I would be a battleship commander right now. And actually, battleships hardly exist anymore. But now I say, find the opportunity and develop this type of passion for the opportunity that you find. Scott Galloway is a professor at NYU, and he said this. And by the way, he talks about money here, but money has nothing to do with being world class. Sometimes it's a side product, but it's not important to becoming world class. But he said, people who tell you to follow your passion are already rich. Most of them got rich doing something boring and difficult, like medicine or iron ore smelting or the law. So most people need to balance 3 things. Something you're good at so that you can stand out from others, something that people will pay you for, and it has to be something that doesn't stink. I changed the last word. But I agree with him on that. Also, there's another lie that people tell you besides follow your passion. Another one is, there's nothing you can't do. Well, there are some things you can't do. Like most of us aren't going to play in the NFL because of genetics. And there are other things that might limit our ability to do certain things. There are many, many, many things that all of us can access and become world-class at. But be wise in what you choose, and choose something that seems to fit you, and be very careful about it. But once you do choose, you go on to the next part, which is deep practice. You choose, and you are in the pursuit of excellence for that thing which you choose. Now, I've always loved baseball. Another sports analogy, but I hope you'll forgive it. My kids, when they were younger, they loved to play as well. I brought a baseball bat up here, and I hope I don't destroy anything. But one of the things that the kids did was take hitting practice from hitting lessons from a fellow that I knew up in Seattle, a good friend named Ray Atkinson, who was an outstanding coach. And he used the steps of deep practice to perfection. The first thing he'd do is chunk the process into steps. So he had the steps of hitting, where you'd load, you'd shift your weight, you'd turn your hips, you'd contact the ball. and then you'd have the follow through. And then he would work with the kids individually on each of those things and then go through the next part, which was to correct any mistakes they had. Now, the kids couldn't take offense to getting their mistakes corrected because they were in the process of learning from an expert. And after that, they would repeat it over and over and over again. I can't tell you the hundreds of times I saw my kids just do this. By the way, any baseball players? Who's on the baseball team here? And so you've seen it, you know the load, over and over and over again. They did it over and over and over again. And then the next step, of course, is to work at the edge of your ability. No baseball player ever hit major league pitching practicing slow pitch softball. And also, if you go straight to trying to hit a 95-mile-an-hour fastball, you're never going to be able to do that either. So you go to the edge of your ability and you take it a little bit at a time, and you get better and better and build your capacity. So don't try to get ahead too fast. Take it in order. Then finally, you do. You learn something, then you do it. Now, when you do something, when you're doing something new, you're always at risk of failure. So I had a son, my son Sam, took the lessons, and he was a great practice hitter. But when he got into the game, he'd revert to his old punch hitting, where he'd get up and make contact, but he wouldn't drive the ball. Finally, one game, he stood up and he says, I'm going to use my new swing, and the first time up, he drove the thing to the wall. Now, one of the challenges, because of the risk of failure, if he hadn't have hit the ball well, he might have been reluctant to go back and use his new swing again. But that's what you have to overcome. That's the importance of doing, is to overcome that. So, okay, I'm going to get through this and on to the next slide. This is what happens in your brain when you do things over and over again. So every time you do something, a transmitter in your brain fires a message of light, it's a key word, of light down an axon, which is received by a receiver, which takes action. When you do that, another cell called an oligodendrocyte wraps that axon, wraps that circuit in something called myelin. So that's cellular insulation. And when you do it over and over again, more and more myelin is wrapped. What the myelin does is make the next time you use that circuit easier. So it speeds up your response, and it makes it easier and more accurate every time. Hence the importance of getting it right and doing it over and over again. This is what myelin looks like under an electron microscope wrapped around an axon. Here's one of the problems, is that researchers of this science have determined that it takes about 10,000 hours for somebody to go from standing start to becoming world-class at something. A lot of people, and appropriately so, I'm not a world-class tennis player, and I figured, 50 hours of tennis got me so I could play. But to become world-class at something, it takes a lot more. A lot of people give up after a short period of time when they're determined to be world-class at something, but if they want to be, they have to really stick it out. Now, I want to talk about light and the spiritual implications of this. So we know in the 88th section of the Doctrine and Covenants that the light of Christ, through which the Holy Ghost communicates with us, proceedeth forth from the presence of God to fill the universe. We also know from Joseph Smith's teaching that our body is a receptor of that light of Christ. And that's certainly one of the reasons why we have bodies, and certainly one of the reasons why, and probably the main reason why we need to be pure. 50th section of the Doctrine and Covenants says, that which is of God is light. He that receiveth the light and continueth in God receiveth more light. And that light groweth brighter and brighter until the perfect day. Now back to the 88th section of the Doctrine and Covenants. It says, that light which shineth, which giveth you light, is through him who enlighteneth your eyes. And that is the same light that quickeneth your understanding. Now, quicken in the scriptures usually means to bring to life, but here it also talks about speeding up your understanding. Like Nephi of old, I do not know the meaning of all things, but I do know that when you practice regular and constant daily worship, of reading your scriptures and saying your prayers, something physiological happens to you. There's a change that comes about you. You know this because when people absorb light, you see people who are full of light and they seem to shine with this special light. And also, they have a quick understanding. Their understanding is quickened by this. And so they're better at receiving revelation and understanding the revelations of God. The opposite is also true. Those who give up early and who don't put in the time never know the glory and joy of receiving and hearing the voice of the Lord through the revelation of the Holy Ghost. There's another thing that you need to know about myelin. It doesn't care what it wraps. So if you're doing something stupid or lazy or irrelevant, it'll wrap it and make it easier to be stupid, lazy, and irrelevant. If you're doing something good that's targeted at getting you to your goal, but you're not quite doing it right, then it's going to wrap that too, and you're going to get in a bad habit like punch hitting. But that makes the next step so important. Master coaching. So finding someone, I can't tell you how important it is to find a mentor or master coach that believes in you, but won't tolerate mediocrity. A lot of people think they can do this on their own. They are wrong. In Proverbs it reads, the way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. So, finding a mentor is critical. This is John Wooden. John was the coach at UCLA. He was 3-time All-American at Purdue and then the coach at UCLA for 12 years. During that time, he recruited people from high schools that he believed in, who he believed could be part of his team, and he had a vision for what his team could accomplish. But he didn't take it easy on them. One of the people who wrote a biography on Coach Wooden went out to a few of his practices and counted the comments that he made to see what kind of comments they were. About 6% of them were positive feedback. 5.5% were negative feedback, but the vast majority, nearly 90%, were just instruction. He didn't figure he had to coddle these athletes because he thought they had a vision of wanting to be world class and they wanted to accomplish something special. And they did. In the 12 years that he was the coach, they won 10 national championships in basketball. That is a coaching achievement that has never been equaled by anybody else. Because of the nature of my career, I was able to interact with dozens, if not hundreds, of CEOs, some of them very effective. The greatest CEO with whom I have ever been associated with is in this slide, but he's not the guy on the left. The guy on the left is also great. But Bill Bain organized Bain & Company with Pat Graham with the idea that it was going to be a world-class consultancy that would help CEOs of large companies across the world. He recruited people from business schools and used performance in business school as a proxy for what he felt that the students would be able to become. Then he made tools to help these freshly graduated students become effective advisors to industry leaders throughout the world. Some of the tools that he created included skill development, creating great output so that they were able to deliver good product to the clients. It also had assimilation. The tools created assimilation so that everybody could buy into the culture and get to know one another. And finally, he would reward performance and talent above all other things in a great meritocracy. The thing I liked most about the organization is that there was a culture of feedback where up and down the organization, each of us could give the others feedback, whether they were senior or junior to us, so that it could help us get better. No one would get their feelings hurt and storm off and sulk that somebody gave them feedback. They would just simply try to get better. Also, people who, this is in the spirit of by their fruits ye shall know them. Bain clients in the 27-year period that I have data on, grew 4 times faster than the companies that are included in the S&P 500. Also, people who moved on from Bain typically served in really effective careers, including being executives in other companies, even philanthropic organizations, and also being church leaders. You'd be surprised, I think, at how many people who are in the leadership of our church have had some association with Bain in the past. This is all part of the legacy of the great Bill Bain, master coach. There's something that happens when you start to become great at something. There are forces that want to drag you back down to the average. We call that the the gravity of mediocrity. Sometimes it's just voices in the world that want to make you think that your vision or ability is not enough. And other times it's just the betrayal of the best in yourself. Even cherished friends, teachers, leaders may sometimes seem to block your advance by the insidiousness of low expectations. These are some things that you have to overcome if you're going to be great at something. I love Condoleezza Rice's statement where she said, "Don't let other people's prejudice be your problem." It is the privilege of all of us who are disciples of Jesus Christ to consecrate our time, talents, and all with which the Lord has blessed us to God's great service and to the purposes of the Savior. This is not always easy. Oh, the cunning plan of the evil one. Oh, the vainness and frailties and foolishness of men, for when they are learned, or rich, famous, influential, or talented, they think they are wise and they hearken not unto the counsel of God. This happens more than you think, and it happens right before our eyes as people veer off of the path and let go of the iron rod. Contrast this to another example. Eric Little participated in the 1924 Olympics, and his climb to the Olympics was documented, or at least memorialized, in the movie Chariots of Fire, which I highly recommend. Eric, his father, and his brother were sitting in a room with a number of trusted advisors, and they said, somebody said to him, "Eric, how good are you?" And one of his friends spoke up and said, "Oh, he'll be running for Scotland by the end of the year, and then who knows, the Olympic Games." Then the father said this, "Good, Eric, do your best. The mission cannot help but benefit from your success, but don't compromise. Compromise is the language of the devil. Run in God's name, and let the world watch and wonder." "And now behold, I say unto you," said Nephi, "you must pray always and not faint. That you must not perform anything unto the Lord, except first you pray to the Father in the name of Christ, that he may consecrate thy performance unto thee, that thy performance might be to the benefit of thy soul." There's one safe path for maneuvering what we're doing in this world. That's to follow the prophet. This is our recently retired prophet, President Russell Nelson. He's gone on to other interests. But he understands the talent development cycle. He also understands consecration. At 17, he entered college. He was drawn to medicine because of the war that was going on, but he didn't know what heart surgery was. But through a serendipitous series of events, he was able to land a spot on a research team that led him to heart surgery. And then he returned to Utah. For 30 years, he practiced cardiothoracic surgery. Then at the age of 59, completely unexpected, he was called to be a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like every apostle, back to Peter, he dropped everything and followed Jesus Christ. But you may say, so he got ignition in college, just like where you are. He then got a mentor in Clarence Dennis, who ran that research team, and then he had deep practice, and he was totally consecrated. But you may say his life was utterly beyond my own. Don't believe that. Believe this. Marianne Williamson said, "We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that others around you won't feel insecure. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And when you let your light shine, you unconsciously allow others to do the same." Jesus said it more succinctly. "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify their Father in heaven." I hope you'll remember, ignition is picking what you're going to do, believing you can do it, and getting the desire and motivation to be great at it. Rapping myelin is the result of deep practice and thousands of hours of practice at it. The need for a mentor that believes in you but won't tolerate your mediocrity cannot be overstated. And finally, it is your privilege to consecrate all that you do to our Master Jesus Christ. I testify that God lives. He is our Father, and He loves us. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is Christ's New Testament church restored in its fullness in these latter days. Jesus Christ stands at the head of our church, and Dallin Oaks is his prophet. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen.